So obviously I've said earlier, I'm Sam, living in Chesterfield, physics teacher, science teacher. Got into that, I wouldn't say by accident, but I'd done a science degree while I was working in sales. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do still with life, and got into teaching. A friend got me interested in teaching and went into teaching. So work-wise, that's where I'm at now. As a child, I grew up in York, one of 4 boys. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My dad was preacher at an Evangelical church in York, and my dad has been a preacher all his life. He's now retired, but he's still quite active with things. So I grew up in a Christian family, had every opportunity, I guess, to get saved at a young age, but for whatever reason, it never seemed to impact. I used to go to church with the family twice every Sunday. There was family worship every day at home, Brothers got saved. As I remember, I think they were all saved in their teenage years. And sort of, for whatever reason, I sort of seemed to be like the black sheep of the family, rejected the gospel and, went off into working life, and wasn't one of those sorts of people that I can, say I was living like the devil, but I was just living a normal, worldly, unsaved life, I guess. I think the thing I was thinking about this earlier, I think the point in life that sort of really first rocked me into sort of thinking about the future and death was in 2018. Because in 2017 I'd done, I was quite into my fitness and bodybuilding. 2017 I did a bodybuilding competition, felt like the peak of my physical fitness and things. And in 2018 I wound up in hospital with the surgeons all scratching their head wondering what was wrong with me. I'd had a lot of pain in my abdominals and basically went into surgery being told, we'll open you up and you'll find out what we've sort of taken out afterwards. Thankfully, it just turned out to be a burst appendix and an abscess and stuff. So that was like the least worst option on their lists of this is what might have to come out. So that was the first time I remember being really rocked into thinking, am I going to make it through this? But like you do, sometimes you sort of go quite quickly back to, life and work. I can't remember exactly what point it was, but in that period between 2018 and 2020, I started getting an interest in things like end time stuff. I saw some end time stuff on the internet and it just seemed to catch my interest, Not all of it biblical either, but just some stuff. I'd been looking at some science stuff. But obviously in that area, there's a lot of Christians online and on YouTube posting stuff. And the Lord led me to some decent preachers online. And I just started listening to sermons and things. Was still unsaved at this point, but sort of, I think within myself, I was acknowledging that, I was beginning to leave some of my scientific beliefs behind and sort of acknowledging that the Bible is true. And then I remember getting saved on Sunday the 8th of March 2020. I'd been listening to a few different preachers, a bit of a broad spectrum. I'd been listening to people like Pastor Charles Lawson, who's, like a KJV only guy. I was listening to Carter Conlon a lot, who's just like a big sort of mega non-denominational church in New York that preaches the gospel faithfully. And I was listening to Carter Conlon that evening and just decided, what am I doing? I'm going to get saved now. And trusted the Lord as my saviour. Told Mary, my wife, almost instantly that I'd got saved. And pretty much it was bedtime really. I just went to bed just feeling great that I'd just got saved, And then rang my mum and dad a couple of days later and told them I got saved and whatnot. And
had you told them that you were looking at end time stuff?
Nope. No, it was just a complete bolt out the blue. Remember Mum answered the phone and I just told her, something wonderful has happened, I've got saved.
Fantastic.
And obviously they couldn't believe it almost, but they were speechless. But
they've been praying for you.
Yeah, that's it.
And what were your brothers? How did they react?
Yeah, same. I texted the next morning. I texted my brothers and whatnot, and they were, ecstatic.
Fantastic.
But I feel, obviously that was great to get saved, but I feel very blessed that soon afterwards I sort of got on what we would consider the right track, doctrinally and stuff. The Lord led me to the first sort of KJV only guy, apart from Charles Lawson that I'd been listening to. Obviously I found Gene Kim quite quickly, because obviously he's got a big channel and a big sort of following, so YouTube algorithms and things get you there. So I started studying all his discipleship videos. This was when we went into the first lockdown. I got saved about a week or 2 weeks before the first lockdown. So although I don't agree with the lockdowns, it was probably about the best thing that could have happened to me, because this was before schools were geared up with all the online lessons and stuff. Schools were just floundering, and we were uploading work to the online system for the kids to do and email back in. But it wasn't taking me very long. It was like a couple of hours a day, and then I was just like binge watching Gene Kim videos and studying the Bible. Ordered my Rutland Reference Bible that summer, and just started, obviously branching out as you find more and more reliable preachers and things, including yourself. And I remember, I even remember Gene Kim doing a video on people he recommends, in other countries, and you were one of them. So that was great. And obviously when you started doing the time to regroup meetings, that was a massive blessing, because when I got saved, I started was very keen to get involved in a local church straight away. And obviously my parents were encouraging that. So I went to an evangelical church that's just a mile or so from where I live. And obviously I was already slightly at odds with them, because they use, the preacher preaches from the NIV. Various other people in the church were using a variety of other Bibles, midweek Bible studies. The confusion was evident, because you got people reading out of all different versions and things. I was the only one using a King James, and the times I had to listen to the preacher say a lot of negative stuff about the King. Like you say, it's always the King James they have a go at. It wasn't any other version. It was always the King James he had a pop at from the pulpit. And obviously doctrinally, as I got more grounded in the Word, they're Calvinists, they preach 5-point Calvinism, they, amillennialism, don't rightly divide, sort of food blender theology. So it came to a point, I'm going to mention it, in another message sometime, go into more depth, but it came to a point where after about a year of going to that church, I just couldn't take it any longer. As much as I was desperate to be in a local church and have that fellowship, it was just a waste of time. I wasn't getting fed at all, and it was actually leading to me getting to the point where I was struggling not to open my mouth, and sort of debate/argue with the pastor and stuff. It just became, there was no point to it, It came to that point where it was time to leave. But it wasn't that long after that you started these meetings. So I felt like, the Lord had given me somewhere else to go. And obviously I do miss that, I am isolated, like a lot of us are. I don't have anyone locally that's sort of on the same page, with the Bible versions or doctrine. And even my own family are not keen on my doctrine, not particularly keen on me coming here, and things like that. And they've made that clear, but I stand on what I believe to be right. So that's sort of a potted history of where I've got you.
Let's pump in a few questions before lunch. Mark.
So Sam, as a physics teacher,
Yep.
How do you reconcile? Because I'm a university studying science as well.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile your background in science?
Yep.
with like
This is something that got in my head quite quickly after I got saved. I thought, I've now got to stand up in classrooms and carry on teaching. On the spec there's, evolution, Big Bang, all this stuff. So I teach it for exactly what it is, and I make sure that I teach it as this is what science teaches, however there are opposing views. Even just wording it like that, kids are quite inquisitive, and they pick up on language like that. And sometimes, especially as more and more know that I'm a Christian, I leave the door open for them to ask me. So I don't go in there trying to sort of preach from the classroom, because in this day and age I'd probably get fired. But I very much leave it like that, and sometimes I will say, I don't agree with this, but this is what science says. And the kids immediately want to know, well, why don't you agree with this? Or what do you believe? And as soon as they've asked me a straight question, I can give them a straight answer. So that gets a variety of reactions. Generally, kids are very accepting, because although it's kind of good and bad, the school system has taught them to be very accepting of everything. So although they're very accepting of things we wouldn't agree with, like LGBT and, you know, gender confusion and all this, they don't bat an eyelid at the fact that I'm a Christian. They don't mock, they don't think it's particularly weird or anything. They're quite inquisitive. And as I mentioned before to some of you, I've had some really great conversations with kids, especially some of the older kids. Even one herself that's very confused. Just a month or two back, I had a year 11 girl who's now done her exams and gone, who's very confused about her identity and her sexuality and things, came to me, and we were talking for half an hour. She had all manner of, and these weren't questions she'd just come up with off the top of her head, and I said that to her, and she said, yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while, you know, about God, you know, why we're here and things. And because she knew I was a Christian, she was interested to ask what I believed. So, yeah, so that's how I get around that whole thing. I'm very honest with them that I don't believe all this stuff. But in terms of staying in teaching, it's one of the things that makes me stay in teaching, because I'm probably the only person that those kids will ever hear that stuff from. Yeah, so that's the way I see it. It's where the Lord's put me for now, and it's, you don't know what seeds you're planting and whether some will come to fruition in time, you know.
That's brilliant. Another question? Anybody? Of course you can.
So my eldest son's just finished his GCSEs.
Yep.
He turns 16 next month. I very much doubt he's had a teacher like you be exposed to these type of things. Now I'm endeavouring myself teaching the gospel, and my youngest too. If you could give me any advice as a teacher, what one thing would you pick out of life to really kind of grab their attention?
Good question. Good question, because as I say, because I don't normally go in with a big hook line, I'm often waiting for them to open the door for me, you know. So often I just have to adapt to whatever question, you know, they might be like, well, if you don't believe in evolution, what do you believe? Or, you know, do you believe in creation? Those are sorts of questions I often get, and then I just lead in. So I don't often have to go in sort of cold, if you know what I mean, with a question. So that's a tough one to answer. Yeah, I'll probably have to give that some thought and come back to you. But I think maybe getting them to question what's just accepted, and do they really know how much or little evidence is behind some of this stuff that's just presented as fact by the scientific community, and have they actually looked at the evidence themselves?
That's good. Excellent. Right, thanks Sam very much indeed.